Welcome to Spindle and Spoon Homestead, your place for simple living and hand spinning. Join me today as I share my latest natural dye project. Hey everybody, today I'm doing a video on dyeing with Weld, otherwise known as Dyer's Rocket. I was not able to grow any in my garden this year, although I did try. I bought some seeds from Sarah at Farm and Folk, and I just kind of scattered them in my garden bed, but it wasn't a very well prepped bed, and we had some flooding and the seeds totally washed away. But I'm going to try again in the spring, and this time I'm going to try and grow them in some trays first indoors and just baby them a little bit more, because it's supposed to be really easy to grow. But anyway, Weld creates a beautiful, like really clear, almost fluorescent yellow color, like a cool lemon yellow. It's really pretty, and I'm not really a yellow person, but let me show you a picture. This is Sarah at Farm and Folks. This is her book for natural dyed quilts. She's also a farmer, and she grows all these dyes and also food. Here's the page about Weld. And I highly recommend this book. It's so beautiful. It's about quilt making, not dyeing wool, but I also consider myself a quilt maker, so making a naturally dyed quilt is definitely on my to-do list. And I have been dyeing some fat quarters over the past couple years, and I'll get there eventually. But anyway, I bought some Weld from her. She sells her dyes, and it comes in a cute little bag, although I think she's changing her packaging. But anyway, it grows in this really tall stalk, and she like cuts it up into little like 1-inch pieces, and it's just dried Weld. And this is a 4-ounce bag, so you're supposed to use it at about 35% of the weight of your fiber. So I'll have to do a little bit of math there. But what I'm going to dye is actually something I have dyed previously. This is a bag of wool, Corriedale wool, that I dyed with her Weld before, but I didn't measure it, and I put way too much in, and it's just not very vibrant, kind of dull looking. I dipped it in indigo too, so it's more green. But the cool thing about yellow is that even if you don't like yellow, yellow and blue make green, and yellow and red make orange. So it's one of the primary colors that you really need. I've also got this giant ball of Cheviot Sliver that dyes really well, and so I'll probably do a little bit of this too. And I'm also going to do some of that cotton sliver that I did in my Coreopsis video. But this time, since it just soaks up the dye so well, this time I'm going to try just doing the cotton in the exhaust bath. So hopefully it'll be that clear yellow and not like a really, really dark tan yellow or something. Because that cotton, it just soaks up the dye so much, and I don't want it to be really dark this time. So those are my plans, and I will make a video about the Weld for you. And if you are enjoying this video so far, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. I do all kinds of things on my channel that have to do with homesteading and fiber arts. So I've got all kinds of fiber art videos and natural dye videos, gardening, growing natural dyes, growing food, all kinds of recipes. So if you like that kind of thing, and my Angora rabbits, raising Angora rabbits for fiber. So if you like any of those things, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And now we'll go on to dyeing with Weld. The first step with dyeing with Weld, just like in my Coreopsis video I did last week, is to cook the Weld in water at just barely a simmering temperature. And you just want to cook it
and hold it at that just barely simmering, not boiling temperature for about 1 hour. Weld is a plant that is supposedly very easy to grow. It's native to Europe and Western Asia, and we even have historical records of it being used in like the 1st century AD. It is a very ancient dye, which is super cool, and it's very color fast and light fast and creates a beautiful primary yellow color. So after about an hour of that bare simmer, it looks like this, and this is your final dye bath. And what you need to do next is to strain out all of the little plant particles so that you can put in your fiber. So I use these really nice fine mesh large strainers that fit right over a big pot or a 5-gallon bucket, and I just pour it through. Now I did learn that the teeny tiny seeds that were in this Weld, some of them, not all of them by a long shot, but some of them did make their way through this fine mesh. So if I were to do it over again, I would use like a bandana or some kind of tightly woven cotton cloth or something to filter, to put on the mesh strainer to filter out everything, and just be sure that there's no little bits getting into my fiber. I'm also pressing down on this to squeeze out every last drop of dye. And the stuff in the pot is my dye bath, and it's ready to use. And I'm adding my wool. This is the Corriedale that has a little bit of Weld on it already and a little bit of indigo. But it was just a little dull and kind of bland looking, so I wanted to dye it with more Weld. So you just add it, and I forgot to pre-soak this. If you pre-soak your wool, it will result in a more even color. But it didn't really matter to me because this is just loose wool that I'm going to card later anyway, so it'll get blended at that point. But pre-soaking is a good practice for most dye projects. Just a note about Weld. In North America, it is considered an invasive species in some states, and it's illegal to plant it because it does spread just like a weed. It likes poor soil. So be sure to check on that if you decide you would like to grow it. Don't grow if it's illegal. And if you do grow it, even if it is legal, make sure you take care not to let it spread all over the place, because it is considered a weed here. Now I'm adding extra water because this dye bath was low down in the pot, and you want enough water or liquid to allow your fibers to move around freely. This adding extra water isn't going to mess with the dye, it just disperses the dye throughout the space that the liquid is in, and so the fiber can move around freely and soak up all those dye particles. Now you want this to be submerged, and stir it just barely at all. You don't want to accidentally felt your fibers. Keep it at a very gentle simmer for 1 hour, and this is what it looks like after that 1 hour. And you need to rinse it. Make sure you don't shock the wool with a really different temperature of water when you rinse. Keep the water temperature at the same, roughly the same level as the temperature that the wool is when you put it in. So don't put hot wool, wet wool into cold water. It will felt your fibers. And as you're rinsing, you don't want to agitate too much, again, because that will felt the fibers and you won't be able to pull them apart for any of your projects. Hey everyone, I want to show you the results of my Weld dye baths. This is what I dyed first, and I just love this fluorescent yellow color. It's very, very cheerful.
This does have bits of green in it because the wool I used, if you remember, it had some blue in it from an indigo dip, but not very much. So it's mostly this bright yellow with little bits of murky greens. And this is a really nice Corriedale, and it's still wet, but that's what I've got for now. And then in the exhaust bath, I plunked in this Cheviot Sliver, which is also still very wet. And it's still a very vibrant yellow, so I was really happy with that exhaust bath. An exhaust bath is just the leftovers after you put one batch of wool or whatever into your pot, and then you remove it. You put something else in the pot to soak up any leftover dye. And on the stove now, I still have a little bit left in my exhaust bath, so I put in some of that Dye-licious cotton sliver because it really doesn't need very much dye, and I'm slowly learning this. I keep adding too much dye and the cotton comes out so dark. So I decided, why not try an exhaust bath and see what happens with that. So I've got that going right now, and I'll put some finished photos and videos of that at the end of my video too. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of the video. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me with my goals for this channel and helps me to be able to keep making this content for y'all to watch. Thanks.
Here is the cotton sliver in the exhaust bath. I'm not sure if this is going to be too pale. Sometimes it looks too pale to me and other times it doesn't. I did end up adding just like a couple tablespoons more Weld, like new fresh dry Weld, to this dye bath because I'm just not sure how it's going to turn out. And now it's time to rinse it. It's definitely got a lot of color on it, but sometimes, like after I squeeze it out, it starts to look really pale and kind of dingy and boring. So I gotta let it dry and see how it looks then. I just don't know. But if it is pale and dingy and boring, I can always over dye it with either the same color or maybe a light blue or a light red or pink. So it won't be a loss or anything. I'm still learning how to dye this cotton sliver. And this time, unlike the Coreopsis video, I did tie my cotton sliver in as kind of a skein with a bunch of little ties because it's such a nightmare to untangle it without just ripping it all apart. So this will be much easier. It stayed intact. This cotton sliver, it falls apart so easily, whether it's dry or whether it's wet. It just wants to just fall apart, separate. It's much more challenging to dye than wool. However, it is the Dye-licious brand of cotton, so you don't have to mordant it. It's already had a mordanting type of process done to it, so that is a major bonus, because that's one less, bucket of liquid I have to dunk this thing in and try to keep it held together. So this is what it looks like now. It's still soaking wet. It's very pretty yellow, but we'll see what it looks like when it dries. And here is my wool, the Corriedale with the greenish blotches on the left and the Cheviot on the right. And all of these will eventually make their way into my shop, so be sure to check out my shop. The link is in the description. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.